Hello again, and welcome to Broadcasting Scotland. It's Friday the 12th of May. I'm Andrew Wilson, and this is Scotland at 7. This evening, I have the latest daily update from Ukraine on day 443 of the illegal Russian war of aggression and imperial ambition, and then I will take a look at today's headlines from Scotland and around the world. And at the end of the programme this evening, we have a short video package from the launch of a new play about Billy Connolly, which took place earlier today. Russia's defense ministry has denied reports that Ukrainian forces have broken through in various places along the front lines and said the military situation was under control. Moscow was reacting after Russian military bloggers reported what they said were Ukrainian advances north and south of the eastern Ukrainian city of Bakhmut, with some suggesting a long-awaited counter-offensive by Ukrainian forces had started. Turkey's defense minister, Hulusi Akar, has said that the parties to the Black Sea Grain Initiative are approaching an extension. The Ukrainian military analyst Alexander Musyenko says that Kyiv's backers understand that a counter-offensive may not result in the complete eviction of Russian troops and the definitive defeat of Russia in all occupied areas. We have to be ready for the war to continue into next year, or it could end this year, Musyenko told Ukrainian NV Radio. Vice Admiral Viktor Sokolov, the commander of Russia's Black Sea Fleet, has said its defences are being tightened amid a flurry of Ukrainian drone strikes targeting its home base in the Crimean port of Sevastopol. The Black Sea Fleet flagship, the cruiser Moskva, was sunk by Ukraine in April 2022. China's foreign ministry has announced that its special representative for Eurasian affairs will visit Ukraine, Poland, France, Germany and Russia from Monday in what it calls an effort to promote peace talks. President Biden and Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez will discuss Ukraine, defense cooperation and migration on Friday during a meeting at the White House. The US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen met the German Finance Minister Christian Lindner on Friday to underscore the importance of working together to counter evasion of sanctions imposed on Russia over its war in Ukraine. The Prime Ministers of Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania said today that they are considering speeding up a plan to disconnect the Baltic region's electricity supply from Russia's power grid. The UK Defence Secretary Ben Wallace yesterday confirmed reports that the UK is donating long-range Storm Shadow missiles to Ukraine. Wallace said that Ukrainians will have the best chance to defend themselves. And Poland's defence minister confirmed that the army was aware of a possible missile heading towards the country in December last year. Poland has been on alert for possible spillover of weaponry from the war in neighbouring Ukraine. The UK economy is at the bottom of the G7 growth league behind Germany, France and the US after an unexpected contraction of 0.3% in March. A strong performance in January meant the economy grew by 0.1% over the first quarter, the Office for National Statistics has said, but was unable to prevent the UK economy being 0.5% smaller than it was in 2019 before the pandemic. In contrast, the US economy is 5.3% larger than its pre-COVID size, France's economy is 1.3% larger, and Germany is 0.1% smaller than in Q1 2019. Responding to these GDP figures, the SNP said that Westminster control is damaging Scotland's economy as a consequence of the UK lagging behind other countries on economic growth. The SNP economy spokesperson Stuart Hosey MP said that the sluggish growth is caused by Brexit, Tory cuts and the UK government's atrocious mismanagement of the economy. He said, at a time when millions of families are suffering from a cost of living crisis, the Tories and pro-Brexit Labour Party are making it even worse and inflicting long-term damage on the economy with Brexit and austerity cuts instead of investment. He went on, the evidence shows Westminster control is damaging Scotland's economy. The SNP is the only party offering a real alternative and a pathway for Scotland to escape Brexit and regain our EU membership as an independent country. The UK government has been condemned for their decision to slash support to Ukrainian refugees from £10,500 to £5,900. Confirming the UK government's intention to cut support in a response to a letter from the Scottish Parliament's Constitution's External Affairs and Culture Committee, the Conservative Minister Felicity Buchan MP wrote that the government made a tough decision to reduce the local authority tariff to £5,900 per person. The response from the UK government came in the same week that inflation in the UK rose for the 12th consecutive time, as food and energy prices continue to soar. Commenting, the SNP's Rona Mackay MSP said, "This compassionless Tory government has slashed support for Ukrainian refugees when they need it with this reckless decision to cut council support." While the Tory government is all too ready to wash its hands of its moral duty to refugees and asylum seekers, this SNP government is doing all that it can to ensure that people seeking sanctuary in Scotland receive the warmest welcome possible and know that in Scotland they will always have a home. Scotland has gone well beyond the initial commitment to welcome 3,000 people. More than 24,400 Ukrainians have arrived here, the majority through the Scottish Government's Super Sponsor scheme. That is 1/5 of all the UK arrivals, proportionately higher than any other UK nation. Almost 2 in 3 young women have experienced sexual harassment, bullying, or verbal abuse at work, according to a TUC poll. However, most victims do not report it for fear of not being believed or of damaging their relationships at work or their career prospects, the TUC said. Overall, almost 3 in 5 women have experienced harassment at work, the poll showed. The figure rises to 62% of women aged between 25 and 34. Most of these cases were not isolated incidents, with 57% of women saying they had experienced 3 or more incidents of bullying at work. More than 2 in 5 had experienced at least 3 incidents of sexual harassment. The TUC's General Secretary, Paul Nowak, said, "Every woman should be safe from sexual harassment, but every day we hear stories about the extent of sexual harassment in our workplaces." Separate research by the public sector union Unison recently showed that only one NHS trust in England provided dedicated training to prevent sexual harassment, even though 1 in 12 NHS staff has experienced such behaviour at work in the past year. Meanwhile, the CBI, the UK's biggest business lobby group, has been rocked by a series of sexual misconduct allegations. The TUC alleges that some Conservative MPs and peers are trying to sabotage new laws to protect workers from sexual harassment and assault at work. The Worker Protection Bill, a private member's bill put forward with Minister's support by Vera Hobhouse, the Liberal Democrat MP for Bath, which would introduce a new preventative duty on employers to tackle sexual harassment in the workplace. The bill would also protect workers from harassment and abuse by third parties, such as customers, clients, patients, or members of the public. The TUC said that these were 2 big gaps in the current workplace protections for women, but the TUC also said that Tory backbenchers were trying to delay the bill to ensure it does not pass within the parliamentary time that is available. The TUC poll found that in 2 out of 5 of the most recent incidents, the perpetrator was a third party rather than another member of staff. Most incidents of sexual harassment, bullying, or verbal abuse happen in work premises, but they also happen over the phone or by text message, or online, by email, on social media, or in virtual meetings. Fewer than a third of women who said they had experienced sexual harassment at work told their employer about what was happening, and only 2 in 5 of those being bullied and half of those suffering verbal abuse reported it. Of those who did not report it, some felt they would not be believed or taken seriously, while others thought reporting it would impact negatively on their relationships at work or on their career prospects. A court has granted bail to Pakistan's former Prime Minister Imran Khan for 2 weeks in a corruption case and ordered his protection from arrest on any charges until Monday, amid concerns he would immediately be rearrested on his release. Security was tight as Khan appeared at a hearing in an Islamabad High Court today, seeking bail in multiple cases. He had been in police custody since Tuesday after being arrested on the premises of the court by almost 100 paramilitary officers. To the anger of the government, Khan was granted relief on Thursday when the Supreme Court ruled that the manner of his arrest on court premises was illegal and ordered him to seek bail from the High Court. He stayed overnight at a police guest house but was no longer a detainee. On Friday, judges in the Islamabad High Court formally granted Khan bail for 2 weeks in the Al-Qadir case involving allegations of illegal land transfers. The judge also granted Khan bail in 4 other cases against him and barred authorities from arresting him in any other cases across the country until Monday. Khan and his lawyer had expressed concern that he faced the threat of rearrest in relation to some of the dozens of other cases he is facing. "I am 100% concerned that I will be arrested again," Khan told local media on his way into the courtroom. He said that if he was arrested again, the cycle of violence would continue. The crackdown on members of the PTI party continued in the early hours of Friday as 2 more senior leaders, Yasmin Rashid and Shireen Mazari, were arrested in Lahore and Islamabad, bringing the total of detained PTI leaders to 7. Khan has denied all charges against him as politically motivated. His popularity has risen since he was removed from power in April last year, accusing the country's powerful military, once his close ally, of orchestrating his downfall and accusing senior military leaders of attempts to assassinate him. The violent protests that erupted across the country this week largely abated after the Supreme Court's ruling, but the army was still present on the streets, and an emergency law preventing gatherings was imposed by police in the capital. More than 2,000 people have been arrested, and mobile internet remains shut down across the whole country. On Friday, earlier today, Khan called on thousands of his supporters to gather in Islamabad, where he promised to address them after his court appearance. The recent spate of executions in Iran looks set to continue after authorities released videos of 3 protesters confessing to the killing of 3 security officers in the so-called Isfahan house case. The men have already been found guilty of the murders and have no further grounds for appeal. More than 60 people have been executed in Iran since late April, some for drug offences, and many from the region of Balochistan, where the protests have been most intense. In a further sign of a crackdown, about a dozen human rights lawyers were summoned to attend a meeting at the prosecutor's office in Evin Jail in Tehran to be told to curtail their activities, according to the Sharq newspaper. One of those summoned, Ali Mojtahedzadeh, said, "If we are looking to create peace in the country, why should a lawyer who is always in the prosecutor's office be summoned to the prosecutor's office as an accused?" At least one of the lawyers active in social media has been told that she will face charges of propaganda against the regime. The 3 defendants in the Isfahan house case, Majid Kazemi, Saeed Yaqubi, and Saleh Mirhashemi, have been found guilty of warfare, a more serious offence than murder. They were arrested on the 21st of November and accused of killing 3 Basij police officers in Isfahan 5 days earlier. Their families claim that they are innocent, and the only evidence against them is torture-induced confessions. The latest official videos broadcast on state TV, in which the men incriminate themselves and each other, could be seen as an attempt to prepare the public for their execution. One of the men said he had been influenced by Instagram and that he was grateful to the government for filtering it. In a released phone call from inside the jail to his fiancée, Kazemi subsequently said, "We were told to say these things in court, all of it under torture. I did not have any gun or do anything." After the publication of his recorded denial, and with a cousin active in Australia protesting his innocence, he was moved out of the public ward. The men were found guilty in hearings that only lasted 4 days. Lengthy contemporary police radio recordings do not appear to back up the prosecution claims that they shot the policemen while on motorcycles. And last week, the UN Human Rights Chief, Volker Turk, called on the authorities in Iran to halt all executions and to abolish the death penalty. Turk said that more than 10 people were being put to death each week in Iran, making it one of the world's highest executors. Since the 1st of January 2023, at least 209 people have been executed, he said, adding that the figure was likely to be higher due to the lack of government transparency. Turk also noted that the numbers included a disproportionately high number of minorities. People in health and social care settings will no longer be advised to wear face masks from Tuesday, the 16th of May. The return to pre-pandemic guidance means that mask use will be based on clinical need, based on infection prevention and control advice, meaning that staff, patients, service users and visitors will not be routinely asked to wear face masks in health and social care settings. This follows a review of the guidance introduced during the pandemic to protect staff, patients, service users and visitors, and recognises that Scotland has now entered a calmer phase of the pandemic. The Chief Nursing Officer, Alec McMahon, said, due to the success of vaccines in protecting people and the availability of treatments, now is the right time to revise the advice on wearing masks in health and social care settings and return to pre-pandemic guidance. We recognise that some staff may have concerns around the withdrawal of this guidance, and we would expect organisations to undertake individual occupational health assessments and risk assessments as appropriate. He continued, we continue to be vigilant in our response to COVID-19 and encourage everyone to make sure that they are up to date with the boosters available to them. We are grateful for the tireless work of health and social care teams during these challenging times, and to everyone who has helped them by adhering to the guidance. Eligibility for free student tuition support in Scotland will be extended to cover a wider range of immigration statuses under new proposals. The Scottish Government has published its response to a recent consultation on student support residency conditions, which was launched following the decision in the Jassim against Scottish Ministers court case. Regulations have been laid in Parliament to extend student financial support to those currently residing in Scotland who have been granted leave to enter or remain in the United Kingdom, where they have also been resident for 3 years. The proposed changes for the 2023-24 academic year will also see eligibility widen for asylum-seeking children to remove the time limit which previously applied. It means that unaccompanied asylum-seeking children and the children of asylum seekers will be able to apply for tuition fee support. The Higher and Further Education Minister, Graham Day, said, Scotland has a strong track record in supporting our young people. I recognise the impact that any delay to an asylum claim can have on a young person's education journey, and I hope that the changes set out here will go some way to address that. In addition, the changes we are proposing to capture a range of immigration statuses will mean that all students, other than accepted groups, must now meet the same length of residence in the UK, 3 years, to access support. And an estimated 20,000 additional people will become eligible for additional help to buy healthy food when income thresholds are removed from the Best Start food payments. The Scottish Government benefit provides help to pregnant women or their partners, as well as families with children aged up to 3 years old, so that they can buy healthy food, milk, or baby formula. It is currently paid to people who receive qualifying benefits, so long as their incomes are not above set thresholds. The Scottish Government will introduce regulations that remove those thresholds, increasing eligibility for Best Start food to around an additional 20,000 people from February 2024. The Social Justice Secretary, Shirley-Ann Somerville, said, tackling poverty and protecting people from harm is one of the Scottish Government's 3 critical missions. Rising food prices disproportionately hurt those on the lowest incomes, so removing the threshold for qualifying benefits means around 20,000 people will now get vital help to buy healthy foods. She continued, Best Start food is one of our 5 family payments, including the Scottish Child Payment, which together could be worth more than £10,000 by the time a first child turns 6, and more than £20,000 by the time that an eligible child is 16. And that is all that we have for you this evening, or nearly all. In making these programmes, Broadcasting Scotland relies on the generous support of viewers and others who value our distinctive approach to news, current affairs and culture. Please help us to continue to make these programmes, to continue to develop the station, and also to make new programmes for you. Our programmes will always be free to view, but if you can afford £5 a month, please consider becoming a Broadcasting Scotland supporter. We have set ourselves a target of raising £30,000 in order that we can continue to pay the bills. To everyone who has donated and to everyone who has signed up to make a regular monthly payment as a Broadcasting Scotland supporter, thank you very much. There are other ways in which you can contribute to our work. If you would like to volunteer to work with Broadcasting Scotland, either behind the scenes or in front of the cameras, or in any other way that helps our work and promotes the station, then please visit our website at www.broadcastingscotland.scot and send us a message there. You can find us on Twitter at BroadcastScot. Please like and retweet us there. And you can also find us on Facebook by searching for Broadcasting Scotland. When you're watching us on YouTube, it would be great if you would like and subscribe to Broadcasting Scotland on that platform. On this day in May 1999, Dr. Winnie Ewing MSP, as Acting Presiding Officer, opened the first gathering in 292 years of the Scottish Parliament, with the words, "The Scottish Parliament, which adjourned on the 25th of March in the year 1707, is hereby reconvened." And on a personal note, it's also International Nurses' Day today. I know that whatever the setting, whatever the location, whomever the patient, the one thing that all nursing staff have in common is their unwavering commitment to make a difference to people's lives, not just to their patients, but to their patients' families and loved ones too. And I, for one, am very grateful to all of our nurses. Now, Broadcasting Scotland visited the National Theatre of Scotland at their Rockvilla studios today to meet the writer and director of Dear Billy, a love letter to the Big Yin from the people of Scotland. We interviewed the cast, that's the actor and writer Gary McNair, alongside musicians Simon Liddell and Jill O'Sullivan, as they were rehearsing in full costume on set, ahead of the first performance, which will be on Tuesday the 16th of May at 7:30 in the evening at the Palace Theatre in Kilmarnock. Dear Billy is a unique touring production that will evolve on the road. Writer Gary McNair has collected hilarious and moving tales about Billy Connolly and has turned these stories into a special show, celebrating the Big Yin and what he means to the people of Scotland. Dear Billy will travel the length and breadth of the country, visiting local theatres, art and community centres. Directed by Joe Douglas, Gary will be touring with musicians Simon Liddell and Jill O'Sullivan, collecting more stories from audience members, which may be woven into the show as the tour progresses. Lewis and Charlotte went along this morning, and their report is coming up in a moment. We will be back at 12 noon on Sunday for the next edition of the Full Scottish, so please come back and join us then. Please have a very peaceful weekend.
Is that no incredible? You're out here today talking to people about Billy Connolly, and here's me only his biggest fan? That's unbelievable. And I do quite a good him as well. I do. Oh, listen, I do. No, I know you're saying just go on, wait and do it then. Okay, fair enough, right? But I'm a bit nervous now, because I've talked myself up and you're expecting it to be dead good.
I'm Gary McNair. I'm the writer and one of the performers of Dear Billy.
So, Dear Billy is a really original and unique idea for a stage production. How did this first sort of come together?
Well, loads of people had said over years, either coming to shows or different theatres or whatever, saying, "Do you do something about Billy Connolly?" And I said, "Great, that's brilliant, but what?" And it always, so it's been in the back of my head for ages to do something. But they're off big banana shoes to fill, you know, and also his biographies are so great. What would you do? You tell his life story, or, you know, say, "Hello, I'm Billy Connolly, this is the story of," you know. It didn't feel like the right thing, it never landed, and then, but the more I spoke to people about the fact that I was thinking about something about Billy Connolly, they would all say, "Oh, I've got a Billy story," you know, and you realise everyone's got a Billy story, and they were all giving them to me. And I realised I need to do something with them. And then you realise you could sort of piece together who he is and what he means through all these contributions. And then we sort of find out a bit about ourselves as well along the way. So that was when it really sort of came together, and it's been a real team, huge team effort, collecting those stories. Loads of amazing story collectors going out and speaking to people on the street, working with the director Joe to sort of try and, you know, pick from these. We'd love to have them all for you, you know, because they're all so wonderful and beautiful.
It's not a tribute show, you know, but it's the idea for kind of going out and collecting stories and asking people, and then folding that back into a script which Gary writes, came from that from that, I think, that desire to kind of make a show about Billy and kind of that in a way that he might enjoy watching himself.
And I've done previous shows where you walk up to people and say, "Can I just talk to you? I've not got time." And I must admit I'm the same. With Billy, they give you the usual attempted body swerve. "No, I've not got time. It's about Billy Connolly." "Oh, right, well, I've got time for him. I've got time for Billy."
So the show has an amazing collection of all these different stories from Billy's, you know, legendary career. Do you have a personal favourite, one that resonated with you?
Yeah, I think there's some brilliant ones. There's people who kind of, you know, do Connolly do their best joke or their favourite bit of patter or whatever, which make me laugh and kind of connect me to it. But I think, what's my favourite? There's a guy who just goes on this really beautiful, again, kind of slightly distracted. I think he might have smoked something, to be honest, because he just goes off on a complete tangent. But it's just really eloquent and really beautiful and very funny. And it's that kind of way in which, capturing the way in which people speak, which often you don't see on a stage. You don't see, you know, it's that kind of tradition. I think Scotland's particularly good at that sense of capturing the voice and putting it and kind of elevating it in their art, from kind of, you know, whether it's in the poetry or the prose, and Billy absolutely is part of that. And I think that's what we're trying to do, is kind of capture those moments which can kind of, and put them on a stage, and you see them in a slightly different light.
My favourites are in the show, but also a lot of my favourites aren't, because you try and build a show as well. So you can't just go this bit, that bit, all our favourites. You have to try and craft a piece, you know. So there's points where you say, "Oh, there's no room for this one," which we love, but maybe there's an extended version. Maybe there's an archive at some point to be had. But it's they all mean a lot, because everyone's given something of themselves to do it, so they're all as special as each other, which is lovely.
Finally, if there's one thing that you really hope people take away from the show after watching it, what would that be?
I just want to have a great time and have a really, really good night. And me and Gary talked about like wanting them to just go up the road and go and look at their favourite bits of Billy and dig out the old DVDs or the records or and yeah, maybe kind of getting. I'm really pleased that we're able to sort of explore the kind of some of the music a bit, and that look at that era of kind of Scottish folk musicians that Billy was part of, because it had some extraordinary artists in there as well.
We want them to feel good, you know. We want them to, I imagine, we want them to have laughed. We want them to have felt emotional. The music in the show is tremendous. Jill O'Sullivan and Simon Liddell, they make some beautiful music and actually elevates Billy's stuff. People think back on Billy, you can't really pin. I mean, obviously we remember him as a comedian, but as a musician, as a storyteller, as a communicator, as a leader of people, really, you know. And their music really takes us, I think, to a beautiful and emotional space, which I think will carry through. My hope is that when people get home, they'll want to tell people their Billy story, and then they'll want to watch Billy on YouTube and keep going. So, yeah, we just hope they have a good old time at the theatre.